that is related to racism. But I don't think we can survive our future, which is our young people, being disconnected to each other, thinking they're enemies of each other, killing each other, maiming each other, and adding to the mass of mass incarceration.
Right.
This is true, you know. So you make an interesting point, and I had an opportunity to read the book, and I, thoroughly enjoyed how you really start out talking about, because the book almost seems like it's going to be talking about gangs, and you do spend some time talking about this rift, in Far Rockaway, but really it's a way of showing that there is a connection that relates back to slavery, that we're doing some infighting. Even there was infighting then, and there's infighting now, and not really knowing that, we may be related to the person that we're committing violence against. And so can you speak to that?
Well, it is clear that our young people do not understand the nature of the transatlantic slave trade. They don't understand the nature of it, the maneuverings of it. They don't appear to understand what the African diaspora means. And because they don't, and the nature of slavery here in the United States, and I would have to say that they don't understand, and maybe a lot of adults don't understand it either, because if they did, they would know that we are related to so many people that we may never know that we are. We could be related to someone walking down the street passing us, to our neighbors. We don't know. When the transatlantic slave trade was in full force, one family could easily be sent to 3 or 4 different countries. And over the centuries, sold and resold as commodities. So there's just no way of knowing who all of your relatives are. I think that I'm hoping that when the young people, or if they begin to understand it, they would recognize that we are one tribe.
Yes, and
in the United States, people of African descent, be they from Jamaica, Barbados, South Carolina, we are one tribe, and we need to behave that way.
And so to just connect what you're saying, just about the whole idea of kind of, there's a loss of identity, I guess, and so that adds into this whole idea of mass incarceration, that when people don't know who they are, they're liable to kind of engage in any kind of behavior, because they're looking for acceptance, they're looking for inclusion and those types of things. And if they can't find that at home, then they're going to find it on the street. And so either one of you want to chime in here?
Well, I think that that's definitely an issue in the Black community. I think that we've definitely forgotten. When I look back and I think about the civil rights movement and how people would dress and just very business-like and just there to take care of business. And then I look at our community right now. It's pretty disheartening to me. That sense of style and class and finesse is given way to this gangster kind of mentality that all the young folks kind of grasp or they strive for. I think that we're very proud people. Historically we have been, and I think that a lot of that has just gone away. Initially the ideal was that we should assimilate. When we talk urban sociology or sociology, we talk about assimilation. But I think that that's very difficult to do when we still have this issue of color in the States. In sociology, we talk about it as a color construct because that's all it is. We're all biologically the same. But I think that, when you also look at integration, blacks, even though we've been here longer than a lot of groups,
Sure.
are still not that well integrated into our society. Hispanics are actually integrating at a faster rate than we are.
Sure.
I think that, I think black people are beautiful. They come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. But I think that this generation has forgotten that. I just really do. When I look at, my parents talked about when they had to move into what was considered the ghetto when they got married in 1960, because my mom is German American and my dad is African American. My mom said the ghetto then was not what it is now.
Sure.
She said that people were proud. They worked. The dad went to work, the mom cleaned the house, she took good care of the kids, and it really was that village type mentality. And now, with the urban environment the way it is, and migration and the way people move, we're so dynamic, you don't even know your neighbor.
Right, that's true.
And I think that causes lots of issues. And as far as loving and embracing one another, I don't think we've done a very good job with that.
And I guess Dr. Hodo, said a mouthful, which was so salient and I think powerful, as well as Jackie, as it relates to identity. One of the things that I would challenge as we begin to talk a little bit about solutions and how do we go forward. So we talked a little bit about in communities, about mentoring as it relates to reaching out to those young people in your communities. But I also would want to encourage adults to have conversation with adults, that if perhaps there may be choices that you're witnessing adults make that might influence, I think that we have to get away from being intimidated by talking to our neighbor or those around us. And I think that not in a confrontational way, but the Bible says, for example, to speak truth in love. And I think that we have to begin to start not just focusing on our young people, but the adults as well, to hold them accountable. I'll go a step further too. I want to challenge, as we talk about identity, when you have a sense of purpose and understand who you are and what you're trying to achieve in life, or if you believe that there's something greater, I think that you're less likely to make certain decisions. But all of us make bad decisions. And as we talk about mass incarceration, I want to push our just the everyday citizen who votes. I want to push every pastor, every imam of a Muslim temple, every civic leader of a organization, to begin to start giving voice to a lot of the systemic issues that exist. So what can people do to begin to start addressing mass incarceration? You can begin to start writing your local senators, your local elected officials, to share with them how the public policy is adversely affecting your community. Share your personal story. So often we hear the numbers, but people don't associate names and stories. And it's amazing how one story can actually compel an elected official's heart to begin to start reconsidering some of the policies that exist. In addition to that, I want to encourage, again, those persons who have platforms, whether it be at your local barbershop or hair salon, or even Dr. Hodo in the higher institutions of higher learning, pulpits, mosques, to begin to challenge our legislators to revisit our policies. And I think that one of the things that we have to do is educate. Most people are totally uneducated about a lot of the sentencing and what justifies something being a felony. So I'll give you an example. In the state of Virginia, the grand larceny threshold for a felony is $200, which came into place in 1980. Here it is, we're 33 years later, and other states around us have allotted for the cost of living. And so as a result of that, a person will be convicted as a felon with a grand larceny charge of $200. Now, I want to be clear. I want to say for the record that I don't encourage theft or larceny. But how this translates for our young people, as I looked around, many of us in the studio have smartphones, which cost, $200. A child who's in school that decides to take, or the cell phone, if you will, of a friend or colleague, now has a felony charge that will follow them. Purses, I was teasing Tammy earlier. She was telling us about her purse collection, and but just those items that now tablets and things that are just so common in our society. And so the point is that I think that we need to revisit our public policies. Want to encourage everybody to let's begin to start having this conversation, but let's reach out so that we can address systemically some of the things that have been that are institutionalized, institutionally adversely affecting not just African Americans, but to your point earlier, I think to use a quote from Dr. King, he says, "What affects one of us affects and affects all of us." And so this is not just an African American or Hispanic or persons of color issue, but this impacts all of us.
It does. And so, I wanted to, it's a rich discussion, and, time is winding down. There's just so many ideas that have come out since we've been sitting here. And, I want to go back to something that was in the book that you wrote, Jackie, and there was this symbol. There was a symbol that, went through generation. And as I think about that, even today, like, bringing that, into today, a symbol that families, have. And so the symbol that you wrote about in the book was something that was marked on the body or on some item. And so, Jackie, if you would just speak to that as a self-identity piece, I would appreciate that.
Well, the gentleman, the Angolan who was alive during the Portuguese's occupation of Angola during 1655, was about to take a trip with his family. First, I must tell you that the basic part of this symbol is a Chokwe symbol, an authentic Chokwe symbol that the Chokwe's use today in Angola. But the character, Wasafa, was about to take a trip. And he knew it was going to be dangerous with his family, so he goes to ask for counsel from the spiritual person in the village. And he asked the spiritual person to convene with the ancestors so he would know whether or not to travel with his family. And the response was that it was up to him, but that if he did go, he should embellish the tribal symbol. He should embellish it, add some more to it, and tell his children that they should tell their children that this was their family symbol now, and that they should always use it in some way. So that in the story, that is how the symbol was able to endure. Over time, it became part of, depending on which family, it was the Javier, one of the characters from Mexico, his family tattooed it on the men tattooed it on their right breast. In another family, it was etched on a clay pipe.
Right.
And another family was a carving on the bottom of an oak tree. So in different ways, it endured through the different families over generations.
And so what you're saying is this, and really like there's like a family heirloom of sorts. It's like, so today we can have abstract symbols within our families in terms of that identity piece. When we connect this to people kind of getting involved in whatever the criminal activity is, it's like when you don't have self-identity, if you don't have, families passing something down. So to take that analogy from your book in terms of it was a visible symbol, but for some of us it's promoting education, promoting whatever is in our family. There's a line of something in our families. So Jackie, can you just hold on a second, because we have a caller that wants to call in, and so if you can hold for a minute while he patches this call through.
Yes.
Silence on the set. So, well, we can, if you have anything that you want to say to anything that was just said. Okay. All right.
But I think this is a great show. I wanted to just applaud you for having the courage to utilize this platform to talk about such an important issue. And especially, in a day, for example, with reality TV, there's just so many images that are being presented to our young people. And